This is Nick Carter, and you are watching Stories from the Battlefield. Today we're diving into one of the most unbelievable missions in the history of the U.S. Air Force. It's an absolutely harrowing story of survival, where the biggest fight wasn't against the enemy outside the plane, but against the pilot sitting right in the commander's seat. Just think about that for a second. How on earth does an American pilot, in the middle of a combat mission over enemy territory, end up spitting out his own tooth? Well, the answer is just staggering, because the person who knocked it out was his own captain.
Okay, let's set the scene. The date is July 26, 1943. You're in the cockpit of a B-17 Flying Fortress. Her name is Ruthie II. At the controls, you've got co-pilot Second Lieutenant John Morgan and his good friend Captain Robert Campbell. They're part of this huge formation, 120 bombers strong, heading for a target deep in Germany, Hanover.
But that calm? It doesn't last long. As they're crossing the North Sea, a voice crackles over the radio. "Bandits, 12 o'clock high, a lot of them." And just like that, the mission goes from routine to a desperate, clawing fight for their lives.
And when he said, "a lot of them," he wasn't kidding. Look at this number. Over 150 German fighters just swarmed them. We're talking Focke-Wulf 190s, Messerschmitt 109s. It was like they kicked a hornet's nest. The odds were frankly insane. The German fighters come screaming in, head-on, guns blazing. Suddenly, the cockpit of Ruthie II just explodes in a spray of shattered glass and twisted metal. A 20mm shell takes out the top turret gunner, but it's one single bullet that changes absolutely everything. It hits Captain Campbell square in the head.
In that absolute chaos, with his captain slumped over, critically wounded, Second Lieutenant John Morgan doesn't even hesitate. Not for a second. He grabs the controls, his voice coming over the intercom, somehow steady. He knows, in that instant, he's on his own. The lives of the entire crew are now on his shoulders.
But just as Morgan gets the plane steady, trying to get back into the safety of the formation, the yoke, the control column, starts to move in his hands. He glances over, and what he sees is impossible. Captain Campbell is sitting bolt upright. His hands are on the controls, and he is flying the plane. This is where the real nightmare begins.
You see, all of Morgan's training is screaming at him, stay in the formation. That box formation is their only defense. But Campbell, with that devastating brain injury, is doing the exact opposite. He's yanking them into these wild banks, pulling them out into the open, basically painting a giant target on their back. The man Morgan is trying to save has become the single biggest threat to every soul on that plane.
Morgan is pleading with him, trying to get him off the yoke, but Campbell, in his delirium, just sees him as a threat. And then, he makes a fist, and he punches his co-pilot, his friend, right in the face. A brutal, desperate fight for control of the airplane has just started, 20,000 feet in the air.
And as if a fistfight in the cockpit wasn't enough, the plane itself was literally being torn to pieces around them. The crisis wasn't just up front, it was everywhere.
At the same time, down in the nose of the plane, a whole other drama is playing out. Second Lieutenant Keith Koske sees the turret gunner, Sergeant Tyre Weaver, just collapse. His arm is almost completely severed by a 20mm shell. Koske knows there's no way Weaver survives the 4-hour flight home, so he makes an impossible choice. He grabs a parachute, but Weaver, barely conscious, pulls the ripcord inside the plane. In a final, desperate act, Koske shoves the blossoming chute under Weaver's arm and pushes him out the escape hatch, just praying he survives. As if all that wasn't bad enough, another burst of enemy fire shreds the intercom system and, crucially, punctures the oxygen lines to the back of the plane. And now, a new enemy, a silent one, starts to attack the crew, Hypoxia. With their oxygen cut off, the waist gunners and the tail gunner, they just start to feel sleepy. Their vision blurs, and then, one by one, they slump over at their guns, completely unconscious.
Seriously, just try to put yourself in Morgan's shoes for a moment. The intercom's dead, he has no idea his rear guns are silent, he has no idea one of his crewmen was just pushed out of the plane. All he knows is that German fighters are still hammering him, and his friend, his captain, is relentlessly punching him in the head. And yet, through all of this madness, this unimaginable chaos, the mission is not over. Up ahead, they see them, little black puffs of smoke dotting the sky. Flak. They've reached the target area over Hanover.
Down in the nose, the bombardier knows something is terribly wrong. He can't talk to the pilots, but he also knows his job.
So without a single command from the cockpit, he takes control. He peers through his bomb sight, lines up the target, and gets ready to do what they came here to do.
And he does it. Morgan feels the B-17 lurch up as thousands of pounds of bombs are released. It is an absolutely unbelievable moment. The plane is being torn apart, the pilots are locked in a fist fight, half the crew is unconscious, and they still hit their target. The Ruthie II banks and turns for home.
But getting home was a whole other battle. The flight back was a grueling, 3-hour ordeal, with Morgan trying to fly the plane with one arm while using the other to hold his delirious captain back. For another full hour, German fighters just kept hammering the crippled bomber, which, remember, couldn't even fire back from its rear guns. Then, finally, they broke off. As they neared England, Morgan, desperate to get Campbell to a doctor, put the plane into a steep dive. And here's the incredible part. That one act, meant to save one man's life, ended up saving 4 others. As the plane dropped into the thicker, oxygen-rich air of lower altitude, the 3 unconscious gunners in the back began to stir. They woke up.
So, 3 hours after this whole nightmare started, Morgan somehow managed to land the Ruthie II safely back in England. Here's the final count. Tragically, Captain Campbell died from his wound about an hour after they landed. Sergeant Weaver, the man pushed out of the plane, incredibly, he survived the fall, was captured as a POW, and lived all the way to the age of 74. And the rear gunners, who were out cold for nearly 2 hours, all survived and recovered.
And John Morgan, for flying his aircraft, for completing the mission, and for saving his crew, all while literally fighting his own dying captain for control. Second Lieutenant John Morgan was awarded the nation's highest decoration for valor, the Medal of Honor.
So, as we close out this incredible story, I have to ask you, what part of this just stands out to you the most? Is it Morgan's unbelievable fight in the cockpit? Is it Koske's desperate decision to push a man out of a plane to save his life? Or is it that incredible twist of fate, that emergency dive that brought the gunners back from the brink?
Let us know what you think down in the comments. We genuinely read all of them. And hey, if you want to get to the bottom of more incredible stories just like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching.